Good afternoon and welcome to to Larry Bolinger from District 47, a legislative candidate running for the Nebraska Legislature. Thank you, Larry, for joining us for our virtual legislative candidate meetings. My name is Gina Ragland, and joining me today is Susan DeCamp, Volunteer State President, and Advocacy Lead Volunteers Joyce Beck and Bob Lassen. Larry, we appreciate your time for taking the time to meet with us today and discuss issues of importance to the 50-plus voter and their families in Nebraska. As a reminder, this meeting is being recorded and will be shared with AARP members across your district prior to the election. So Larry, if you want to start us off by giving us a little background about yourself and your campaign, we're aiming for 5 minutes or less on that. That would be great. And then once we've completed your opening, we'll move into the questions. So I'll pitch it back to you, Larry. Go ahead.
Okay. Well, I'm from Alliance, Nebraska. Graduated out of Henry Ford, and after I got out of high school, I joined the military. Spent some time in the Air Force, and then after that, I did try one in the National Guards out of Alliance. And then I am a graduate from the University of Nebraska. I got a Bachelor of Science degree, and then I got a master's at Bellevue University in Public Administration. And basically, I've been in politics for about 20 years now. Ran for office. This would be my eighth campaign, and I worked on, quite a few different policies. My last campaign was for Attorney General, and I actually broke a voting record for a position as an independent, basically. And I think I worked on more than 50 policies when I was running for Attorney General. So I'm always usually busy on policies if I'm running for office or not, and do things that can help my community.
Wonderful. Thank you, Larry. We're going to go ahead and jump into the question portion. We have provided you with a set of 3 questions pertaining to the 50-plus in Nebraska. Again, due to our time limitations, we're trying to allot our answers to about 5 minutes for each question. So question number 1 is on health, caregiving, and home and community-based care, and Joyce Beck is going to take that. So go ahead, Joyce.
Hello, Larry. I'm also a graduate from Bellevue University, and now I'm an adjunct professor there. So we have a little common ground there. 84% of Nebraskans over 45 say that staying in their home as they get older is extremely important to them. Home and community-based services, as well as area agencies on aging, become important assets to caregivers as they care for their loved ones. Home care not only meets the needs of their loved ones, but it also provides relief to an already strained long-term care industry. So Larry, here's my 2 questions for you. The first one is, what would you do to protect and or expand the home and community-based programs, particularly recruitment and retention of significant staff and adequate funding for the programs and services that older Nebraskans and their families rely on? And secondly, what would you do to support the 179,000 unpaid family caregivers in Nebraska?
Well, this is something I've tried working on different health programs to try and help improve them. Try and improve the Medicaid and Medicare. I know that's been a big issue. That and the Affordable Care Act's been a big issue, and whether or not we need it or not, but we do need it. We need to expand on it. We need to make sure we have grants to help the continuation of that. I'd like to see things improve to where you don't have to pay for that Plan B. Everything is covered under one system. So if you're a few dollars over, then you don't have to come up with $174 to pay for services. But yeah, it's something that I'd like to see done. I'd like to see grant funds approved for that, for its continuation.
Thank you, Larry. We're going to move on then to the second question is on consumer fraud, exploitation, and protections. And Susan DeCamp will take that. Go ahead, Susan.
Good afternoon, Larry. It's nice to have you with us today. So
Thank
scammers
you.
are increasingly targeting older adults with scams, such as wire transfers, gift card scams, and schemes involving real property. Nationwide, the average victim of elder fraud lost nearly $34,000 due to these crimes in 2023. And in Nebraska, the FTC showed that there were 4,643 fraud reports made. Nearly 9 in 10 consumers agree that lawmakers need to do more to protect consumers from fraud and scams. So with that in mind, this is our question for you. Consumers lose billions of dollars each year to online, financial, property, and other types of fraud. What will you do to address and ensure that Nebraskans are protected against fraud and deceptive or unfair business practices and provide opportunities to redress for victims of fraud? Would you support enacting laws to require merchants that sell gift cards to post notices, enactment of a consumer fraud restitution fund, and implementation of preventative measures to assist in combating owner and seller housing impersonation fraud?
So that's, all of that would be something that we definitely want to improve on, and I'd support it. And it's something that I've hit on when I was running for Attorney General, because it is a big issue. A lot of the seniors are targeted on, in many ways. A lot of seniors get locked into automatic payments for different things, paying for pills, vitamins, even donating to elected officials. They get tied in, and then they're paying. 2 years down the road, that guy isn't even running for office anymore. But the senior is locked into that and paying on that on a regular basis. So it's something that it's several different areas. It's a consumer problem. A lot of it is consumer problem, and that falls under the Attorney General. So working on policies and working with the Attorney General would be a big must, because he's got it. Of course, he's got to be the one that follows the suit when that happens. But we got to have policies to protect the people.
Great, thank you very much.
Thank you, Larry. Our last question, we're going to switch over to more of our housing and livable community side of things. It's addressing helping people stay in their homes and communities, and Bob Lassen's going to take that. So go ahead, Bob.
Yes, hi, Larry. Thanks for joining us today.
Thank you.
AARP's goal is to allow people to age in place and stay in the lowest level of care and cost as long as they can. Now, to that end, I've got a couple things that we're going to ask you about today. One of them has to do with housing, and that would be zoning obstacles that allow just single-family resident homes. In these communities, zoning does not include other houses types, such as accessory dwelling, that would be like a grandmother's house, that sort of thing, manufactured homes, intergenerational duplexes, or apartment buildings that may be better options for seniors. The second, so that piece for the housing. The second piece would be property tax, and I know this makes a lot of news right now, but this becomes especially burdensome for low incomes and older residents. And the monthly Social Security checks just aren't big enough to cover that. The taxes on homes would be another issue. The homestead exemption gives us some relief, but again, there's some questions as to how secure that is. So the questions themselves are: Nebraska over 65 are the fastest growing segment of our population, and research shows that most want to remain in their homes and communities as they age. As housing costs continue to increase, older adults are unable to find housing to meet their needs when seeking to downsize, get out of a bigger home, and thus are being pushed out of communities and homes that they've lived in generations, having to move to different towns even. What will you do to support or encourage to ensure that affordable housing is available, diverse housing options are available, and accessory dwelling units, such as the grandmother house, are also available to increase affordable housing for this generation? The second part would
I know
be,
that
will you fight to ensure that the homestead exemption program is maintained and protected to ensure that older Nebraskans that qualify continue to have access to the tax relief program that allows them to age in place? So those two questions, Larry, zoning issues and then property tax.
well, just on the home exemption, I've always supported that, and I believe we just added not just seniors over 65, we added retired veterans onto that list. So I would definitely fight to support that and continue with that. On issues of zoning, what we fall into a lot of is retirement and disabilities, hard for seniors to get by, and that needs to be reviewed all the time, on a regular basis, at least a couple times a year, to make sure that the Social Security and retirement is, as well as disabilities, actually covering what is needed for somebody to get by. So we need to have grants, support systems for that, and continue with that. But as far as zonings, that's more of a city that argues that. But for seniors doing modulars, we've seen a lot of that over the past few years, setting up an area of town with modulars, doing duplexes, and that's something we need to push more of for seniors that are wanting to get into more that type of care, or assisted living. But for people who want to stay in their homes, we got to have a way to keep them at home, because either way, it's going to be some sort of funds helping them out anyway. So it's better off keeping them in their homes if that's what they want to do, rather than going through the extra expenses.
Okay, very good.
Thank you, Larry. We're coming to the end of our questions and now to the end of our meeting, but before we close things off, we would like to take a few minutes to give back to you to talk with us about what your priorities are for serving in the legislature, and if there's any specific issues that you plan to work on or address during your time as a state senator. So I'll pass it back to you, Larry.
Okay, well, there's this is my 8th time running for public office, so I worked on a ton of bills, but I'm trying to focus in 3 different areas for this campaign, and that's one is just making Nebraska first, put them ahead of contracting with other states and stuff like that, because we do spend a lot of money in other states and with contractors as well as services, and that's hundreds of millions of dollars going out of state. And if we retain that here, then we can look at decreasing taxes. That could significantly decrease tax if we started thinking where we're spending the money. Another issue is I wanted to push the end truancy as a status offense. That's something I've tried working on in the past campaigns. It's something I firmly believe in. I studied political science and criminology, and the studies show that when you utilize diversion programs, you reduce recidivism rates by 60%. And better off working with the kids rather than putting them through the system, which has proven to make things much worse when you put them in the system. And then my last thing that I work on, that I've been working on for a while, is energy efficiency. I did some studies with I did a research analysis with a company out of Texas, and they're doing some research in the Massachusetts area. And there are studies in energy efficiency are able to reduce energy costs by 60%. So that's something that I've been working on, and I've passed that along to several elected representatives here in District 47 as well as our state senators, to try and kind of get it in the head, actually start thinking about it, and then hopefully soon we start implementing the program, because it'll take a few years to get it done, but it just has to start. That's the only way to get our prices down.
Perfect. Thank you, Larry. Thank you again for taking the time to visit with us. We wish you the best with your campaign, and thank you again for meeting with AARP today. Take care.
Thanks,
Yeah,
Larry.
you too. Thanks.
Thanks, Larry.